news, games, and more. It is our daily news, games, and more show. It's sort of self-explanatory in the headline there, but this is the show where we all get together and kind of talk about the day's biggest stories and really just kind of hang out. I'm Max Scoville, and I'm joined today by Matt Kim from our news team.
Hi.
Janet Garcia.
What's up?
And Jeremy.
Oh, hi there. It's me, your pal Jeremy.
You had me worried there for a second. There was a pause, and I wasn't sure if you're going to say the catchphrase.
I would never skip it.
No, we've got some awesome stories today. The Cyberpunk, Genitals, Robocop, and Mortal Kombat. It reads just like gibberish SEO terms that I would write to try to get myself to click on a video. But before we get started with that, I want to give a quick plug that IGN will be streaming the Inside Xbox game preview event that is happening tomorrow morning at the ass crack of dawn, which is 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. That's going to be on this very channel. So if you want to come and hang out and actually see some brand new video games getting revealed, that is a thing to do. And that's going to be Series X games for the first time ever we get to see. So just maybe set an alarm or sleep in and just catch the recording, whichever, up to you. Anyway, so without further ado, Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath is the upcoming big expansion pack that NetherRealm is putting out for MK11, which includes Combat Pack 2 as well as a story expansion, and it's going to be adding a bunch of really cool stuff. The story expansion looks completely bonkers. The main story was completely bonkers. Mortal Kombat is completely fundamentally bonkers, so it's just, to add on top of that is really just, there's a lot going on there. But the really exciting thing for people who are simpletons like myself and also Jeremy is that they have added Robocop.
I could not be more excited about that. What a perfectly appropriate character to be in that game. Although he's going to take umbrage with every single person. He's going to be saying "drop it, creep" to every single combatant that he runs across.
Yeah, a fatality is a crime, so he's probably got some choice words there. What? So how do you think that Mortal Kombat is going to intersect with Robocop, Jeremy?
How does it intersect? Man, I don't know. They've done such a good job of introducing characters from other IPs and other IP holders. We were talking about this earlier. Like, the Alien is from Sony, right? And Terminator is what, Paramount?
What is Terminator? I guess
they definitely had like
the Alien's Fox. The Alien's 20th Century Fox.
Okay, from Fox.
Now, aka now Disney.
Yeah, they're they're pulling them from all over the place.
It's M-rated Smash Bros at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. The thing that it sets up for that I think kind of gives you your in is the classic Terminator versus RoboCop matchup, right? That's what we all want to see.
That's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, they've done a good job with this. It's got the iconic voice and likeness of Peter Weller, which is, I love that because like I feel like that's one of those roles that you could probably really phone that in. Just like it's not like he has to get back in character. It's like, hey, Peter Weller, can you be RoboCop again? He's like, sure thing, creep.
He probably never stops being RoboCop.
Probably.
Ask him to stop doing it.
What are you talking about? Peter Weller's in all those other things, all those movies. So it's hard. It's hard to keep track of everything Peter Weller's doing these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this has numerous options to buy. This is such like I appreciate the options here, but I feel like it's just like a lot of different. If you have Mortal Kombat 11 and Combat Pack 1, this is a $40 upgrade to get both the story DLC and Combat Pack 2. So that's kind of a hefty, buy-in there. If you have Mortal Kombat 11, but not Combat Pack 1, there's one that includes Aftermath, which includes Combat Pack 2 and the story DLC, as well as Combat Pack 1 for $49.99. And if you don't have any of those things, you could just buy Mortal Kombat 11 plus both Combat Packs and the expansion for $59.99. So it's basically just like buying a giant brand new Mortal Kombat game with extra stuff rolled into it.
Yeah, you had to know they were going to do that eventually. They always do this with fighting games. They keep releasing stuff until they eventually do a here's everything bundle. And then even that usually goes on sale shortly after. The problem is it's kind of hard to just jump into a fighting game that other people have been playing for like a year, right? If you're not playing single player or whatever, so it's going to be a little tricky playing online, right?
Well, if you have friends to play with, you can always just like lean on that. Like, I feel like with fighting games, especially ones that, like, the nice thing about fighting games is that you can play like competitively, or you can just play casually. So I think, if we're thinking of Mortal Kombat as M-Raid Smash Bros, it kind of functions the same way. Like maybe you just want to goof around and have fun with your friends, or if there's people that you live with that you can face off against, or if you're really like into the game, then the excitement is in having a new move set and new challenges from that and how it messes with the meta. So I mean, it can't always be a challenge if it's something that is competitive, but I feel like there's always amateur sectors in things that are competitive where you can still have some fun with it.
Yeah, I think that like NetherRealm specifically has done a really good job of managing to strike a balance between making a game that is accessible to casual players, where you can just jam a bunch of buttons and see the most horrific violence imaginable, but also supporting a hardcore fighting scene and really making like a game that supports like people who play competitively.
This really is sort of like a perfect couch co-op fighting game, if ever there was one. Mortal Kombat always has been and always will be. So that's pretty cool to see. Every single person in the comments has made the joke. I'll buy that for $1.
Well, no, you won't, because it's actually it's
gonna be a lot more than
it's
that.
40, it's $39.99
Yeah.
or 60. It's a lot of dollars actually. But that would be, I mean, that would be a cute sale if they were like, you can get just RoboCop for $1.
Yeah.
And I don't,
Yeah, I'll buy
I
that
don't
for
see
a
that
dollar
happening.
sale.
Yeah.
It is a little
maybe.
surprising that they don't offer like they have a lot of purchasing options, but there's not one that just focuses like they do seem to in the way they're packaging this to have like the story DLC be the forefront, and RoboCop's just kind of an extra. But I feel like a lot of people read this and are like, oh no, it's all about RoboCop and I happen to get story. I mean, obviously it just depends on how you play those type of games, but generally that seems to be where people lean.
You know, it'd be weird if you could buy single characters but without having the game, and you didn't get any. They would just be floating in a void, and they would
It's
be
just
they'd
it's
have like a
just
move
the
set, but
DLC.
yeah, there'd be like nothing to hit, and they'd be like just be like Spawn falling through the emptiness of space.
It's like if you started reviewing games on just the side quests, like just the extra content.
I did that once actually. I bought story DLC characters for a fighting game I didn't own, but that's because because Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was going to get delisted from the PlayStation Network store. But if you bought the characters and then like later, I don't know, if you had the game, then you can like retroactively still use the DLC or something. So my plan was
Okay.
buy the DLC characters and then like buy a used physical copy of Marvel vs. Capcom in the store somewhere else for cheap.
Okay.
Serious 4D chess right there.
Yeah, right. That was the
Yeah,
plan. And then they announced Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and then released everything all at once. So, I spent like $9 on nothing.
I feel like you can buy characters individually for like Killer Instinct and Dead or Alive and crap like that without having the actual game, can't you?
Yeah, I mean that's just free to play. That was
Yeah.
that was
Right.
like Killer Instinct's whole thing was they were like, yeah, you want to be Fulgore? Okay, you can be Fulgore. Like who else can you be? No one. You're gonna be Fulgore this month, unless you want to spend money, and then you can be Jago, Glacius, all your favorite Killer Instinct characters.
Do you think all that many people are excited about Shiva and Fujin coming back? And we haven't seen them in quite a long time. I don't remember seeing Shiva like playable since I don't know, like the old games, like the original trilogy.
I mean, there's those characters who were like introduced in 4 who I never played 4. I played like the early ones a whole bunch, and I would like just sort of assume that Shiva and everybody was still around. But then there's like, I don't know. I guess I don't know who the hell Fujin is because he's a character from 4. So
He's Raiden's brother. He's like the wind god. Shiva is the one that used to wear the swimsuit like Borat.
yeah, she's like sexy Goro, right?
Yeah, sexy Goro.
It's a really specific image. That's an
oh.
interesting word picture you just painted for everyone.
Man.
That's what it is.
So, speaking of like vaguely uncomfortable, strange things that were introduced in Mortal Kombat trilogy, they brought back friendships, which I'm really happy about because I think we all need more friendships these days. They showed one in the trailer where it's Scorpion doing his harpoon move, but then instead of ripping out somebody's gallbladder or whatever, he just summons a teddy bear and then hugs it, and then these very realistic mylar balloons come down, which I think is it's like that's such an image that I'm like is like firmly rooted in my like happy childhood memory to see them be like, all right, here's what these balloons look like in 4K. Like here's what like next gen friendship balloons look like in Mortal Kombat. That's like a very nice feeling for me.
Oh, a bunch of people in chat, I should add, are saying that Shiva was in MK9. I forgot about that. She has a really great fatality where she like uses all of her arms and.
Huh. Well, I guess I guess we should probably talk about the genitals.
I mean,
probably move on.
Do we have to?
I
People
mean,
seem really interested, which is kind of funny because like I'm like, you realize that we're not like showing you anything. Like we're just gonna have a conversation. Like
No, so yeah, we don't
it's
have
kind of hilarious.
For
we
adults
even
talking about genitals.
even if we had the graphics of the genitalia from the Cyberpunk game, we would not be able to show it because we would get in trouble. YouTube would send us a firmly worded email. But the big news today is that, I mean, if you put Cyberpunk 2077 has and then anything, that's usually the top story of the day because everyone wants to know about that game. But the ESRB ratings got revealed, and this is one of my favorite things: is when you get a bunch of stuffy old entertainment software ratings board people to come together and they, scientifically analyze everything that might be possibly contentious in a video game. And in this case, it says, among many other things, players can select a gender and customize their character. Customization can include depictions of breasts, buttocks, and genitalia, as well as various sizes and combinations of genitals. So,
okay.
So this isn't a huge surprise if you've been sort of following what's going on with Cyberpunk. There was a poster that was revealed in a screenshot for like NVIDIA ray tracing last year, where there was an in-universe energy drink ad called, like, I think it was called like Chromanticore or something, and it was basically there was this, this person was I guess visibly like gender fluid, like there was sort of both wearing a very skimpy outfit, and there were sort of like outlines of various body parts on display, and there was some like ruffled feathers about this. And somebody from Polygon actually sat down with the artist, and the whole sort of message there is this is a future where, like, gender fluidity is commonplace, and so is like body modification. That's inherently cyberpunk, the idea of being like, yeah, we're all sort of post-human, you can all do whatever the hell you want to your body. And so people are just mixing and matching and getting as as creative as they want with what they attach to their body, and not, including but not limited to genitals. And then this weird energy drink poster was supposed to be like, this is the corporations trying to cash in on that, which is something we see like now when it's like, when companies are like, hey, we're really all about diversity, but also buy our product. And it's like, are you trying to cash in on the message versus like actually have the thing? So this is a a universe where,
that's a
I mean,
difficult
it's
line to walk in your like pre-advertising, but
and it was
CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they handle it tastefully. I think that, like, it's cool to have a game where you can be like, you don't select a gender, you can be whatever the hell you want, and you can have your body reflect that however the hell you want. And if you want to have, like, all sorts of human body parts, cool. And if you want to have like cybernetic mantis arms, you can also have that. So
I mean, it's not crazy to think about, right? Like, what industry is always the first to adopt new technology? The pornography industry, right? They're always on the forefront of VR, DVD, Blu-ray technology, you name it. In fact, like, pornography is the reason why VHS beat beta, or why we have Blu-ray instead of HD discs, whatever the hell those were. So, when you start entering into a cybernetic transhumanism cyborg kind of conversation, the first thing people are going to do is say, like, well, what can I do to my penis?
Yeah.
So, like, I would argue that they probably had, genital modifications in this world of cyberpunk around 2055.
Yeah, that would check out.
Like okay, let's just get like body mod stuff and character customizations for video games is not new, right? Like that Conan survival game had a genital
it was like a slider.
A slider, right? And then you can just, make, right? But yeah, like that. I'm reading this though, and I'm like boobs and genitals are one thing because that's been done before. Buttocks is new. I don't remember playing a game where you can change the size of your butt for your character, and I think that's Cyberpunk 2077's real coup. Is they're like, all right, everything's been done before. What hasn't been done? Your butt size.
That is kind of true, because like video game characters notoriously have the world's flattest asses I've ever seen. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but like,
oh, for sure,
Spider-Man, like just like a stack of loose leaf paper, like just there's nothing there. But in all seriousness, I think
Spider-Man, we call him.
I think this is just them. They seem very focused on like the details. Like we saw a lot of this kind of marketing with Red Dead 2, where it's like, I'm gonna show you these. Well, obviously this is kind of from a rating board, so it's not like they put this out, but it's saying like how far can we push this, how detailed and like lived in can we make this world feel. So I think like genital modification and having like all these customization options related to your body, in addition to trying to fit in with their goal of being inclusive, which we'll see how they actually do on that once the game is out. But in addition to that, it's just like, oh, you've never seen this before. This is a level of detail that is for like going onto new ground. So I kind of feel like that's basically where they're getting at with having this included as well. Like it's just like, I mean, I remember like the first time we all started seeing character customization grow from being just a few presets to like you can spend hours and hours like carefully like changing your nose shape and your skin tone and your hair and adding tattoos or adding scars. So it makes sense that they'd want to step even further into that in terms of this.
I feel like what's really funny is I don't know if any of you know how ESRB ratings work, but it's not like the ESRB people are playing the video games, right? Like the game companies send a package of like content that they think should be flagged for the ESRB to judge. And so a bunch of these rated M game companies are just sending pictures of like, here, here's all the naked models that we made. Here's like potential drug use in our games. Here's screenshots of sex scenes. So is it rated M or what? And they go, yes. Yes,
I mean, anybody who was even remotely questioning whether or not this would be rated M from like the day it was announced, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
There's got to be one person on the ESRB that's like, is this like rated adult though?
I mean, I wonder if they're like Witcher's. We talked about this before we started the show, but like CD Projekt Red recorded over 16 hours of performance capture for the sex scenes in The Witcher, which were pretty graphic, not like hardcore pornographic, but they definitely more like this is like the European standards for what can be shown in media versus maybe what is okay on American cable TV.
They're probably operating off the Supreme Court rule, It's like I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah. But they said that let's see.
Asking what we're all wondering. This guy Gigi in chat says, hopefully we can have weaponized genitals. LOL. Do you think if you could have mantis arms that open up and unfold and like blades come out, that you could have a penis that turns into a flamethrower?
No, we don't.
You ever been to a Rammstein concert?
No.
That I have.
That okay.
That's a good point. I mean,
is it a good point, Max? Is it a good point?
No, so they have talked about how like you will have in this game there will be like upgradable like body parts. Like in the demo that was shown at E3, it was like you have your eyeballs replaced and suddenly you have a HUD on your screen. Like that's
yeah.
And they've talked about how like in order to understand characters speaking other languages, you have to get like an ear implant chip that lets you understand that language. Unless in real life you actually speak that language, in which case you're like, oh, you've actually managed to sort of, metagame it or whatever. But I don't know if there's situations where like I wouldn't put it past CD Projekt Red for this, where if there's a situation where there's a character that I don't know, maybe you're trying to assassinate somebody and there's a possibility to like, I don't know, like maybe you want to like I don't know. Exploding genitals. I don't know.
A weaponized genital really contextualizes Magnum.
Good God.
In a new light.
So they also, in a more conventional discussion, the Australian Rating Board reveals that players can encounter events where they have the option to engage in sexual activities, whether they're main characters or prostitutes. These brief sex scenes, from a first-person perspective, depict partially nude characters moaning suggestively while moving through various positions. Some scenes contain brief depictions of thrusting motions. Other scenes depict a character's head moving towards a partner's crotch. So, yeah, I mean, we probably could have
clinical when you read it out loud like that.
No, there's a like. I did a like a little mini game on the IGN UK podcast where somebody suggested this, and it was really fun. Where it was trying to guess what a movie was based on descriptions on this website that parents go to, and it was like a character's buttocks are depicted, and it was like there was some hint that it was like in a destroyed library scene or something. It was like, wait a minute, is that Avengers? Is that the Hulk they're talking about? And it was like. It was very fun to try to like I think we should totally try to do this where it's like pulling ESRB ratings and being like, what game is this from?
Yeah, I've seen podcasts do that with ESRB. It's always it is always very like specific. Yeah, I mean, like, kind of, we don't really know how this is going to play out in context, like whether or not it'll be effective in storytelling, I guess, or whatever else you're playing the game for. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be kind of weird playing it in first person and like seeing all this stuff happening to you. Like, I can't say I'm really looking forward to that because I think it's going to be kind of weird. Also, one funny thing about the character customization, including your genitals, is that this is going to be really rough for like those kids who, because you don't need to be of age to play the game. You just need to sometimes be of age to buy the game. That's totally the whole point of ratings, is so that like people purchasing can know what's in it, because some parents are like okay with some types of mature content and not others. So it's funny to me that I could totally picture like a kid playing this and then immediately having to hide like the beginning of the game from their parents. Like, I don't know if you guys ever had that situation where like a sex scene comes up or something and you feel like, oh, I don't want you to think I'm playing this jank game, so I'm gonna quickly switch to like cable or just whatever else until everyone
Dude,
leaves, and then I'll put this back so you don't
every
think I'm just
time.
watching some
All the
creepy
time,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm
Every time a
just
sex
going
scene
on an
happens,
adventure, and then there's just these like boobs in my face, and I'm like, this wasn't here a few minutes ago,
I
but like
promise.
it's here now.
my
Uh,
wife for sure thinks The Witcher is like a beat off game or something, because every single time she walks in on me playing it, it's like a sex scene.
Yeah, that's always how it happens, right? Whenever you're watching a movie or playing a game, whoever you live with, anyone really, just walks in at the most awkward moment.
The worst one is Yakuza 6 has live action. Like there's a mini game where you're talking to girls on a webcam, but it's not like in game. It's like live action clips. And in the like the lower corner, you see like the main character, and like you have to do button combos to like make him type. But there's like a chat thing on the side where there's other perverted dudes being like,
Tell me
"Oh
you didn't
wow,
get caught playing that.
my my stepbrother was over, and he's like just sort of into games, but not enough, and he definitely sat down, and there was like a solid 15 seconds of silence, and he's like, so this is a game, huh? And I was like, yeah, it's like, I was like, it's like Japanese GTA, and he's like, that makes sense. And I was like,
yeah.
Is that what they're calling it these days?
that's what Yakuza fans get mad at you if you call it, but that's the best way to explain it to a stepbrother. Anyway,
Yeah. That's
also,
fun.
while we're still in the subject of Cyberpunk 2077, there was one thing that caused a lot of people to panic, which there was mention in the ESRB ratings of in-game purchases, which CD Projekt Red clarified. We're actually referring to the ability to buy future DLC expansions for the game, which they've already talked about, and they've already said it's going to be very similar to how they handled the DLC for The Witcher 3, where there's going to be a bunch of free little drops of, random finishing moves and probably weird body part augmentations or what have you. But then there will also be massive expansion packs, like, of course, the flamethrower. You got to have the flamethrower for the pants. But
That's right.
yeah, but they've also said there's going to be like one or more like massive expansions, like Hearts of Stone or Blood and Wine, and then of course there's also multiplayer happening at some point. So that's a lot to look forward to.
I mean, at this point, most AAA games I will assume will come with DLC expansions at some point that is paid.
I can't think of one that hasn't got it.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
Odyssey.
Odyssey has had $40 worth of expansions, and they're good, but expensive.
There's also like you can purchase like unicorns and stuff in there, can't you? Like there's like the whole Uplay Bucks thing, isn't there?
Rainbow Six Siege is really complicated monetization wise. Like, I still don't know how to unlock every character. I'm just like, please let me pay for them. I will. I just need to know how. And you're like, buy the season 4 pass and buy the season 3 pass, but the season 2 pass is not for sale for some reason. I don't know. Money, it's hard. And
it's all complicated.
It's all complicated. Game companies ask you for it, but sometimes they make it hard to tell how they want it.
Well, I have great news. If video games are too complicated for you, they're starting to make movies based on them. And by starting to, I mean they've been doing that for almost 30 years. But they're doing more of them. The Borderlands movie got announced pretty recently. Eli Roth of Hostile fame is going to be directing it. And cult status, Hostile cult status. Yeah. And apparently Cate Blanchett, who you might know as Hela from Thor Ragnarok, or Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings Hobbit films, is in talks to play Lilith. what do you guys make of this? Because I don't know anything about Borderlands.
Is she like a secret nerd or something? Because I have this like image in my mind of her as this like stuffy like Oscar winning actress, and
Yeah,
yet
Academy Award
she's
winning
in,
actress.
yeah, but she's in like Thor Ragnarok, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, now Borderlands. Like,
So
is she a capital G gamer?
no, okay, hold on. In defense of Cate Blanchett, who I think she could be one of those like Ivy League nerds, where like they have like utmost respect for Tolkien or like Norse mythology, and maybe Thor is sort of old enough that you're like, oh, that's some Jack Kirby stuff in there. I can allow it. But like Borderlands is definitely like some new nerd stuff there. That's there's no like art house intellectual angle there. This is Borderlands. This
I
is
mean,
a silly game.
we don't know. Cate Blanchett could be playing Borderlands 3 right now under her username XX Sniper 420 XX Triple Shot, right? And we don't know. It could be her.
What sort of genital customization do you think that Cate Blanchett is going to apply to her character in Cyberpunk 2077?
Something postmodern and wild.
Didn't she play Bob Dylan in a movie?
Yeah, that was a good movie. She was really good as Bob Dylan too.
Well,
when that energy
So,
continues, I feel like it's
yeah.
definitely not the same tone. What's interesting and kind of weird about this, now I definitely wouldn't call myself a Borderlands fan. I did play 3 for guides purposes. The end. But the whole appeal of Borderlands is, besides the fact that the guns are really fun and creative and good, is like playing with other people. Like almost everyone I talk to who likes Borderlands plays it with other people. So I wonder, like, I guess it does have humor, so they can just lean heavy into that. But like, I don't know if it was actually like funny. So I don't know. It seems like it's hard to capture. Like, the thing that's appealing about Borderlands seems to be something that's not able to be replicated in film. So I'd be curious as to what the angle they're going to take. I'm assuming humor.
The one thing that they have to like lean back on is people are generally pretty hot on the Telltale games, which are like obviously
That's
like
true.
very story driven. So and those I would assume are written by somebody else, because I played Borderlands 3 and I loved it. I loved Borderlands 3. Super fun game, like way not funny. And I don't know if it's just like if I've grown up since I played the first 2, or if it's something changed like societally, or just like in the whoever's writing this or something. But it's like it's very 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 cringe.
Yeah.
So I would hope that they're looking more at the Telltale games for their inspiration than they are at the game, unless we're talking about just pure action.
Right.
Eli Roth is not like is actually pretty good at like visualizing action as a director. I think that's sort of like his real strength. So and he has like this dark sense of humor that Borderlands at least attempts to do. So there's definitely promise there. And when you add Cate Blanchett, secret nerd Cate Blanchett, who I just love, into the equation, it starts to sound a lot more promising to me, at least.
Yeah, I think bringing up Telltale is like a really good point, because
I'm interested in the. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm interested in the tone of the movie. The script is being written by Craig Mazin, the guy who did Chernobyl and also the Hangover trilogy. So
and like Scary Movie 3 and 4.
And Scary Movie 3 and 4. So
I think he's got some comedy chops
resume.
There.
I think Scary Movie 3 and 4 and the Hangover really puts him into like Borderlands territory, and then Chernobyl kind of bucks the trend a little. And so who knows? I don't know.
He also he's also attached to the Last of Us HBO series, right?
Yeah. So maybe he's splitting the difference. Maybe he's putting all of his Hangover Scary Movie chops into Borderlands and putting all of his Chernobyl chops into The Last of Us.
Can you imagine if he accidentally mixed them up? Like, oh my god, I sent the wrong.
I was writing a Borderlands script, but for The Last of Us the entire time.
I wonder if he's going to be like the guy that writes every single video game movie for a while.
Well, he could be. Pano Hero in our YouTube chat says, "Are game movies the new Marvel Cinematic thing?" I think that people have been sort of getting superhero fatigue for a little while now, and I imagine a lot of studios are looking for like what the next big blockbuster movie subject is. And between Detective Pikachu and Sonic, like we're starting to see the beginning of video game movies actually handled pretty well. And I mean the Witcher TV show, the Castlevania TV show, those are both like examples of like how to pull it off surprisingly well. But I can't help but feel like there's a handful of agents out there who are like actually paying attention and being like, all right, this is going to click at some point. This has been a medium that people have grown up with, and they're going to suddenly be wanting to go see it in theaters. It's like they'll be drawn to it.
It's just gonna take the right team. Like there's got to be a. Remember when like David Goyer was writing every superhero movie, and like Avi Arad was like producing every single one? They you can't really argue with the trend that they took something that was really corny in the 90s and even the early 2000s and like really modernized it. Like we're still kind of looking for who those people are in the video game space, but it's bound to happen. It's gotta happen.
You look at this stuff and there's usually that like
playing these games.
There's usually that like 20 to 30 year cycle of nostalgia. And if you look at a lot of stuff that was huge in the 90s, it was adaptations of TV shows and stuff from the 60s and 70s. And I think we're finally at that point where video game properties are sort of kind of clicking. But I'm interested to see like Borderlands. I don't really care about that universe, but I appreciate that it's like at the very least it borders, no pun intended, on unique. It's definitely got some like Mad Max influences, but it also manages to have its own identity. It's very colorful. It's very like it's very goofy. It has there are plenty of post-apocalypses that are bleak and barren and depressing and a derivative of other existing fiction. But in this case, it's like this has enough of its own personality that I'm like, okay, let's see what that looks like on the big screen. Like do something cool with it.
I don't think there's been a good video game movie yet. Like I thought Detective Pikachu and Sonic were fine. I don't think they're Silent Hill was fun, but I don't think it's good.
Fun.
Yeah.
Not
but
where I would use it to describe it, but okay.
I mean, it's wild, right? Like Pyramid Head ripped the skin off of someone like while they were choking them. It was kind of heavy metal. But I think I like this idea that we're getting to just like throwing weird creatives at video game properties and seeing if it works. Like Eli Roth and Craig Mazin at Borderlands is an interesting combo. Craig Mazin at The Last of Us is an interesting combo. Just throwing Jordan Roberts at Metal Gear Solid is a cool choice that could work out maybe.
I mean, he's chasing that down. I don't know if that's even official yet. He's like desperately trying to get that.
Right.
Eli Roth kind of makes sense because he's cut from the same cloth as James Gunn in many ways, having that sort of like very horror, very like kind of schlock movie background. And I think there's done with Guardians of the Galaxy, an IP nobody thought would work.
It's taking an IP that's like kind of this goofy ragtag, not super serious idea, and not taking it too seriously with what you're doing with it. Like which is like those guys both came up through Trauma, right? They made like weird bad horror movies for fun.
Right.
And,
yeah. So like, who better to give the premise? What if the apocalypse, but fun?
My most anticipated video game movie coming out actually is the Tomb Raider sequel. The Tomb Raider movie with Alicia Vikander was not very good, but they got Ben Wheatley to direct the second one, and now I'm very excited. Yep, he's
That's happening?
him and his screenplay writer wife partner are directing and writing the Tomb Raider sequel for Alicia Vikander.
So I was gonna bring them up, but Alicia Vikander and Michael Fassbender are married, and they played Lara Croft and I guess Ezio back to back, or no, it wasn't Ezio.
He was like an original Assassin Creed.
Yeah, but it was Assassin's
also
Creed.
Capital G gamers.
I mean, if they are, they're like easily the most beautiful gamers who ever existed. They're like both like European athletes who are in like Oscar-winning movies, and they're just like I just imagining them like living in this like just ornate castle with like modern Danish furniture everywhere, and it's just like, darling, are you still trifling around with that Tomb Raider reboot? And she's like, yes, I have to get four more collectibles and I'll get the platinum or whatever. Like I just love the idea of them being like just incredibly photogenic gamers who are also in the movies based on games. Anyway.
Wow. But yeah.
It's extremely unlikely, but it would be cool.
That'd be funny. Tomb Raider 2. That's what I'm hoping. It's good.
I'm surprised that Roar Uthag, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the Norwegian film director that did the first one, I'm surprised he couldn't really pull it off a little better. Because have you ever seen The Wave?
No.
That movie is freaking awesome. It's so good. He's a really great director, and I thought that I had really high hopes for that one, to be honest.
That movie was surprisingly good, but I think its biggest problem was it stayed too close to the game. And if you played the 2012 Tomb Raider, it was like, okay, all right, we've seen this. She gets a climbing axe, and then she fights guys, and then it's also there's that thing. It's a very hard thing to find, but like solving a puzzle in a game is fun in a different way than watching somebody solve a puzzle in a movie is.
I'm not even sure it's that fun in a game, but yeah, I get you.
Maybe the puzzle was bad.
Fair point. So speaking of movies that I guess almost happened or didn't happen, or auteur directors being thrown at projects that they maybe couldn't handle, Josh Trank infamously was attached to a Boba Fett movie that did not happen. This was in talks back in 2014 after his success with the movie Chronicle, and it was going to be announced at Star Wars Celebration 2015, but Josh Trank was mysteriously absent. And then he recently did a big interview with Polygon where he talked about how I mean, everyone sort of had an idea that it had something to do with the fact that his Fantastic Four movie was a just critical and commercial disaster. And Kathleen Kennedy of Lucasfilm apparently got wind of that and was like, maybe, not so much. But he explained that he apparently quit because he knew he was going to be fired if he didn't, which was like a little bit more clarity than we've had up until this point, which is still like, it sucks, like
Yeah.
I'm honestly happy we didn't get this movie. Because
Did-
I'm a huge Boba Fett fan, but I like that it's a mysterious character, and getting like a Boba Fett movie that was
Kind of
handled
kills the
poorly.
mystery.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I read the story. I didn't know. I knew he was fired. But I always thought that he was supposed
he
to do
took the-
Rogue
he
One
quit.
and then got. Well, I knew he got disappeared from the Star Wars employee roster. But I always thought that he was supposed to do Rogue One before getting replaced. I didn't know that he was going to do a Boba Fett movie. So,
No, I think that Rogue One at Star Wars Celebration 2015 was already far enough along in production that they had like concept art and stuff to show. Like they had a title for that. But the Josh Trank project was always like unannounced Josh Trank project. I mean, it sounds like he basically talked about how he privately told his managers that he was done looking for work making blockbuster movies. Chronicle was like a weird little indie hit that blew up, and I think he got handed a bunch of this stuff that was sort of, he didn't really quite know how to play ball with like big studios. And like I tried watching that Fantastic Four movie, and it's interesting, but it's also like this is not what anyone would want from a Fantastic Four movie.
It's hard to know without really having done it, obviously, or even knowing anybody who has. But at some point, I think every director of a blockbuster has to either be so extremely strong-willed that they can overpower the studio, or they have to just like really play along right from the get-go. Because the alternative, whatever it is that he did with Fantastic Four, landed somewhere in the middle where like nobody's vision came across.
Yeah.
And that would have been really disappointing to see happen to Boba Fett, and would have also like definitely made it so that we didn't see the Mandalorian.
The weird thing about like the Star Wars movies that never happened, or the Star Wars directors that got shuffled off of things, is, and we've seen this with obviously Josh Trank. He was the first one to sort of get swiped off a project, and then Gareth Edwards was sort of like, he was not involved with reshoots or something for Rogue One, but there was Tony Gilroy came in and picked up the pieces for that, and then famously Lord and Miller were doing the Solo movie before getting replaced by Ron Howard, and all the people who got replaced were basically like career directors. They're very much like directors. They're not young up and coming, kind of fresh off their one first hit. And it seems like they like Star Wars was like, let's get Star Wars movies from like excited young directors, and for whatever
replace
reason,
them.
yeah, it was just like, let's get Ron Howard in here. He did Apollo 13. That's a space film, like
Yeah.
I
No,
think
you're absolutely right.
Josh Trank still has a lot of potential. I think he just needs like another, like he needs like his own like Deus Ex type film, like or sorry, like a Ex Machina, something like a little bit like tight,
Right.
like a 90-minute like thing where he can just like show off his perspective. Because the one thing that Chronicle proved, and some people like sort of mistakenly hand off to Max Landis who wrote it. Max was kicked off the set by Josh Trank like a week or two in. So this is really like Josh Trank's movie, and it was a precursor to a lot of what we consider modern style of filmmaking in superhero films. Like it came before Super from oh god,
James
why am I drawing a
Gunn.
blank here? Yeah, from James Gunn and a lot of other stuff. Like he's ahead of the curve. I don't know if if you go straight from like your one movie to like freaking Fantastic Four.
I mean, there's that old saying that like most directors, or like good directors, have like 5 good movies in them, or whatever the saying is. But they aren't necessarily the first 2 followed by it's not like your first movies are your 5 good ones. It's also like you could make 2 bad movies and then suddenly turn it around. I mean, look at Craig Mazin. Like he wrote a bunch of like bad scary movie sequels. Not that the first scary movie was great in its own rights, but he made a bunch of like kind of comedy sequels that did well enough, and he probably learned some stuff from doing that. And then he did frickin' Chernobyl, which is incredible. So
Yeah, I mean, you can always pull yourself out of the hole. It's once you're in, I think you've got an opportunity as long as you keep your attitude straight. Like I don't know if he's like the kind of guy that's like rubbing people the wrong way or anything, but like, I certainly wouldn't wish
Yeah, I
on
mean, I
anybody.
honestly like I feel bad for the dude because he clearly is like a talented guy. I mean, you don't accidentally make a movie that is like Chronicle and get handed other projects, but it sounds like he basically bit off more than he could chew, or maybe the people pressured him to doing that or whatever. But clearly he was with Fantastic Four. He was kind of in over his head. Did you guys hear about the dogs thing that happened around that?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, this is one of my favorite. It's possible that dogs eating a house led to there not being a Boba Fett movie, but when he was filming Fantastic Four in New Orleans, Josh Trank had rented this apartment, and he had these dogs. I don't know what kind of dogs, but they were like, I don't know if they're rescue dogs or just regular dogs, but they
must have
proceeded
been
to
some big ass dogs. If you said
apparently they ate $100,000 of the house. They really went to town. They just were chewing it up. They were biting it, doing little pisses and shits, and then just making a real mess of the whole thing.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah, like I don't know, like $100,000 of damage. I don't know what that's like. Almost, that's a good portion of a house. Like I mean, it
This
must
is
have been
why
like
I'm
a
a
nice
cat
apartment.
person.
Yeah, or like a real small dog. But anyway, like the dude had like a bunch of dogs. He was in there being like, all right, let's get Ben Grimm's he's gonna get cosmic rays, and they're gonna fight the Doctor Doom or whatever, and then dogs are eating the house, and it's like you can't make Star Wars. What a weird quandary.
Yeah.
Care about $100,000 on like $100 million budget movie.
Yeah, just expense it, like fudge the receipts, whatever.
Also, like, look, it sounds like his conflict is with Kathleen Kennedy to some degree, and people aren't exactly like super happy with her. I'm not sure. Like I feel like everything she's doing is making money, and she's like made a lot of the classic films that we all love, but the trajectory from like a fan perspective on the Star Wars has definitely been giving her some blowback. So I don't know. Maybe she's part of the conflict as much as he is. Who knows?
I mean, I'm of the mind that whoever the creative body, because it's not like just one person on Star Wars. There's no way. It's so big and it makes billions of dollars. But a creative refresh on the team beyond Star Wars is always, I think, helpful, especially when things are going in a weird direction that's not successful.
I mean, there's this weird issue with Star Wars where up until the Disney buyout and Lucas leaving Lucasfilm, it was George Lucas's baby. Like it was a thing that was like it was one guy's idea. It was this one crazy like he'd made a handful of movies and was this sort of auteur director who somehow managed to convince Fox to give him millions of dollars to make a movie about like spaceships using busted up model kits, and it worked. And then he revolutionized how films are made, and then kind of walked away from it. And I think there's probably a lot of pressure for if an up and coming director is brought on board on a Star Wars project, they're probably like, oh, I could be the next George Lucas, but that's not what's wanted right now. Like everything is so much more designed by committee. So my light went out. There it is. Anyway, moving on. Okay, the light's going to stay out. Speaking of working directors and Max Landis projects, Bright, the movie about Will Smith and his orc friend being cops in a magical Los Angeles that came exclusively to Netflix in 2017, is getting a sequel, which shouldn't be surprising because it was a huge hit by Netflix standards. And it is apparently going to be from the director of The Transporter, The Incredible Hulk, Now You See Me, Clash of the Titans, and dozens of other classic films you may have watched on an airplane at some point. Cool, I guess. Anybody? Is it who's stoked for Bright?
I'm not sure I believe the numbers that they were spouting for that first show when it came out. That was when they were at their height of just saying whatever was the first number came into their head. Like 11
I believe
million. Remember when Bird Box came out and they were like, oh, like 1 million billion people watched that, and everyone's like, really? Are you sure?
Which is funny because that was a movie about people specifically trying not to see stuff.
Yeah.
Also, like the two things those have in common is those movies both dropped during Christmas break when people are just like either trying desperately to avoid talking to relatives or they're just like
Mhm.
vegged out on the couch.
I mean, you
I,
guys
I do
know.
think like Will Smith, that is enough to bring in some people alone, just in the name alone. Like
I mean,
my dad loves Will Smith, so I could see him putting this on without knowing anything about it and just being like, if it's Will Smith, I'm here for it. No offense to Joel
to tr-
Edgerton, but
you guys know how Netflix counts views for these things, right? Like, if you watch it for the first 3 minutes without changing, they're like, that's a view.
Yeah, but they
So
like
they've-
autoplay stuff when you just turn on Netflix, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
that's why
Same.
they're
And if you just
they're
keep
I
the
love them
autoplay,
autoplay for 3 minutes. Like
if you
someone
leave
really,
the autoplay on for 3 minutes, that counts as a view. You've seen Bright if you've seen 3 minutes of it, according to Netflix.
who leaves the autoplay on for that long? Like who's not rushing out of there?
I mean, I'll watch a movie for like 5 minutes before going like, yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. I don't do that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't commit. I'm a serial like
So
water tester.
you've, according to Netflix, you've watched more films than most people.
Yeah, according to Netflix, I've probably watched a bunch of Netflix films and TV shows without actually watching them. But yeah, I'm a serial tester where I like dipping my toes into things before dipping out. I don't like committing to things like that. Like, whatever.
I
So I've
definitely
seen
dipped my toes into Bright, but I was like very underwhelmed by it.
if you watch 3 minutes of it, you've seen Bright.
Apparently,
Parenthesis-
yeah, I think they actually count how many people, how many accounts you have, and if anybody
Mhm.
watches it, they count all those accounts. So apparently 15 people watched it, according
Yep.
because I clicked it once.
Yep.
It's called fudging. It's an industry
Yeah.
term.
Netflix fudges their numbers in terms of viewerships. That's like super well known. And it's
Yeah, I mean,
hilarious.
I think they've gotten a little bit more straightforward with that, but that was definitely the success of that initially was kind of at the age where their whole like narrative was you
So-
can't argue with our numbers that we have internally, and also the critics are wrong because look at the numbers, and it's like a lot of people
There
eat
is one
fast food.
interesting thing to note. We talk about a lot of the movies that he's made, but this is a TV show. The most recent TV show he did was The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance.
Mm.
So, tonally, if you're talking about high fantasy stuff, he certainly got the chops for it. Did anybody watch that show?
No, I didn't watch the original, so I wasn't that excited for the next one because I don't have a base for it.
Yeah,
I think
Dark
I've had-
Crystal would be a weird one to step into if you hadn't seen
Yeah.
the original because it looks so weird.
It looks
Dark Crystal's
wild.
a blind spot for me where like I've tried to watch it and I've been like I'm not high enough for this, and I've tried to watch it high and I'm like I'm too high for this. So there's like this, like I
Yeah,
gotta
that's
find the
that's
right.
a hard one to.
And then you just have to go play Journey. It's just
Yeah, no, it's a frightening. But that's even Journey's nice compared to those awful scary puppets.
What was,
when you find that sweet spot, let us know what you
Yeah,
think.
you guys remember that tweet from who was the guy who wrote Bright, not David Ayer who directed it. What's his
oh
name?
Max Landis.
Max Land. That's right. Remember when he tweeted? He's like, Bright might be my Star Wars, and I'm terrified of that.
Oh Jesus! Come on.
Yeah, well,
Really
11 million people watched it, so it's getting yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to like it because it was basically like, hey, what if Training Day was with orcs? And I'm like, that sounds like two movies that I would watch normally a lot. Like I always want to rewatch Training Day and Lord of the Rings. Finally, I could do that twice at the same time. Perfect.
Yeah.
If I wanted to see like fantasy monsters acting like regular people, I'd watch that show Ugly Americans again. You remember that one? That show was great. Bright, not so much. I'm gonna skip it.
All right. So great news, everybody. That this is one of those like stories. I'm just like, I just want to throw my laptop into the sea. Tom Cruise and Elon Musk have buddied up with NASA to go shoot an action movie in space because
Made that up.
Lord knows we don't have other things to worry about these days. But
That's
sure,
not
why
real.
not? That's
That's
real,
not real.
apparently.
No
Man.
way.
NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine tweeted or had his account compromised, hard to say which, but either way, the tweet says NASA is excited to work with Tom Cruise on a film about the @space_station. He just tagged the space station. I hate this so much. I hate this story. We need popular media to inspire a new generation of engineers and scientists to make NASA's ambitious plans a reality.
Okay.
Don't our tax dollars pay for this? What the hell are you talking about?
No, man. If NASA was well funded, there wouldn't be private corporations from Amazon and Tesla trying to compete for the
Look,
moon.
If Tom Cruise wants to kill himself he can just keep making these goddamn Mission Impossible movies. And if he
Yeah,
wants to
right.
get to space, he only needs to pay another, like, what, $300 million to the Church of Scientology, and there you go.
Yeah,
This
I
seems
didn't.
like a cheat.
I am genuinely not terrified for Tom Cruise, but like if he dies during this, like it wouldn't shock me, you know, because I've seen some of the behind the scenes, like this is how we filmed this one high-rise action scene in Mission Impossible 6. It's actually Tom Cruise. I'm just like, dang, that dude that's
I,
hardcore.
I'm
No,
worried about this guy. He's constantly doing crazy stunts.
Yeah.
he's
Uh,
unhinged. I mean, he's a crazy man. Like he does some incredible movies, and like I mean, I love his work. I'm also like weirded out by some of the things I read about him, but for the most part, like this is not this is thrill seeking. This is like a weird impulsive behavior to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to go make a movie in space. Like,
If he was like, I'm gonna film the first scene of a real actor out in space, like repairing the space station, he's gonna do it himself, and that's because that's just who he is, and that's nuts.
Dude,
yeah,
he's
that's
doing
a
stuff that even Jackie Chan wouldn't do. Even
Yeah.
like Mick Foley wouldn't do.
Yeah.
He's a
Uh,
maniac.
Well, the
It's
pro
making my
here
hands
is
sweat just watching him climb up that building in the
So-
B-roll that's playing right now. I hate it so much.
I on like Black Friday, I bought like the 6-disc box set of Mission Impossible movies because why not? And now that I'm locked indoors with nothing else to do, I'm like, well, why not?
They're
I
good
rewatched
movies.
the first one, which I hadn't seen probably in 25 years, something like that. There's that whole scene. Do you guys remember Mission Impossible 1 at all?
Not
Oh,
one,
yeah.
actually.
maybe.
I don't
There's
think
like there's a whole scene where he does a magic trick like 8 times, like a whole sleight of hand thing. And it's like I'm watching it now, knowing what I know about Tom Cruise. I'm like, I feel like this dude really wanted to learn a magic trick, and he figured out like let's make a scene where I do a magic trick, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. Like it
Oh
doesn't.
man.
Yeah.
I
So
saw the behind the scenes for his most recent Mission Impossible where he does that space jump with Henry Cavill, and like he actually jumps out of that plane from like the stratosphere or something, and that's bonkers.
mhm.
Wait, what in the hell does Elon Musk have to do with it? Why does NASA need Elon Musk? They already got the space station.
I think they
I think
contract out his rockets.
I think what happened was Tom Cruise was like, "Hey NASA, can I come make a movie in the space station?" And they were like, "Sure, but we're not coming to pick you up. You got to get your own ride." And Elon Musk was like, "Yeah, okay, fine. I'll give you a ride. Like I'll fly you up there."
I would be terrified to work on that movie. Like, imagine doing a stunt in a space station. Like, a single screw out of place could fire you off into space to just have all the moisture sucked out of your body and have your eyeballs explode from your head. No,
Well, so
thank you.
another thing is this is not a Mission Impossible film. Deadline reports no studio is in the mix at this stage, but this is real, albeit in the early stages of liftoff.
Nice.
They stopped making Mission Impossible because doing it in Italy was too dangerous with coronavirus. So they're doing it in the vacuum of space because that is safer than Earth.
There's a certain logic to that. I buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Cool.
So the good news about this, like, is if the movie's bad, they're like, well, but it was space. And if it's good, they're like, can you believe that we did that in space? So you're covered either way.
Exactly.
That's the trick.
Win-win for NASA, Tom Cruise, and Elon Musk, I guess. A strange team for sure.
Sounds like a weird dream someone would have. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Stranger Things have happened on Netflix, and season 4 is just around the corner. That was my segue.
it was great. I loved it. I wish
Very
I
good.
could. I'm gonna watch this again later just to relive it.
So, IndieWire reports that David Harbour did a Q&A at Liverpool Comic Con back in March when Comic Cons were still allowed, and he teased a huge backstory reveal for season 4. You may recall a season 2 episode where Eleven is going through his house and finds a box for all sorts of stuff. And Harbour said there are 5 boxes, one of which has Brenner's stuff from Hawkins Lab, one of which says Dad, and one of which says Vietnam, one says New York. So these are 3 things we've established in the season that we don't pay off. It means that the Duffer Brothers, or if these are things we've established that we don't pay off on, it means that the Duffer Brothers are bad writers, and the Duffer Brothers are very good writers. So I know specifically that in season 4, we'll give you a big, huge reveal about Hopper's backstory. You guys excited to learn more about Hopper?
Kind of. I mean, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but he's sort of like my favorite character. Like, I'm excited about him being in Black Widow. I like the actor. I like the character. I think he's really interesting, and the way he plays it is good. I like that show. I'm interested in that. I don't have an issue with that.
I
I have
like him
no-
a lot. I feel like the explanation of a character is like, yeah, I don't know. It's like show don't tell. Like I don't know. They were gonna dig into his backstory. It's like we're gonna get like a whole flashback sequence about him in Vietnam and being a cop in New York or something. Like
They got to do something. I mean, I was thinking about like Vietnam being like, but it is like it is retro, so I guess that makes sense. They gotta figure out something to do basically because the kids are all like 25 now, so
Right.
they
They
get
really
it's not a necessity.
they really should have made that an anthology series, but I'm not the Duffer Brothers. I'm not even a Duffer, bro. I don't. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna leave now. Goodbye.
You are contractually obligated to stay for at least the next 5 minutes. I'm actually behind on Stranger Things. I just kind of like fell off of it. It was one of those things where like I don't know, you had to like binge it immediately, and I'm like I don't want to, and I just kind of haven't swung back to it.
Have you
But
seen 3 minutes of the new season?
I haven't.
Oh,
So that
okay. So
doesn't
you
count
haven't
either.
seen it.
No,
Netflix
not
says you
yet.
haven't
It
seen
I'll
it.
was really good.
I'll put it on during the end of the show, and then by the time it's over, it would have counted.
I think they had a little bit of a sophomore slump in season 2. There was like a whole like story arc that they were just like, you know what, we shouldn't have done that, and they just threw it away and never spoke of it again. But they whatever went wrong in the second season, they righted it in the third. It's just a really cool franchise, and when you look at other stuff that's in that same universe of content, like Ready Player One, which is kind of shit in comparison, they do the nostalgia thing a lot of justice because it seems to have like a point and an arc to it, while also like showing you things that are familiar. It's the same thing that like Quentin Tarantino does, and like nobody gives him crap for it, right?
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I'm definitely with you. It should have been an anthology show. I feel like the whole thing with Stranger Things is in season 1. They're like, hey, here's some crazy stuff happening. Surprise! Here's like the big new like Stranger Things starts happening in season 1. So if they're gonna do like flashback stuff to be like, turns out Hopper was in on some strange things the whole time, and it's like, all right, well,
People
great.
like the characters too much. It's like the Halloween thing. Like if they tried changing it to something else now, you'd have Halloween 3, which would be awesome, but it would be different.
Yeah,
and a
no,
lot
that's
of people
true.
that like Halloween 1 and 2 would be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the opportunity for an anthology, that ship sailed. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like really soon.
Yeah.
Well,
Also, we already have that, and it's called American Horror Story, and it's not that great.
Anyway, speaking of Netflix anthology series that are mostly pretty great, Black Mirror season 6 apparently isn't going to be happening anytime soon. Charlie Brooker talked to Radio Times, and he said, at the moment, I don't know what stomach there would be for stories about societies falling apart, so I'm not working away on one of those. I'm sort of keen to revisit my comic skill set, so I've been writing scripts aimed at making myself laugh. This is, yeah, I respect this. A lot of the comments on this just were like, yeah, good riddance. Black Mirror fell off in season 5, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's fair. Somebody was like, that's like what a cop out. I want more dystopian. It's like, watch the news, man. Like,
I think what he's talking about was already like kind of happening when we got the last season. So you would look at that and go like, this isn't worse than what I'm seeing in real life at all. Whereas before in like previous seasons, you were like, wow, things are really going that way. I could see that happening. That's dark. And then you're just like,
Yeah. I just want Bandersnatch too. Like, I just want them to do another interactive thing. Like, I actually don't particularly enjoy Black Mirror. I've tried a couple episodes. I wasn't into it. It's a little too head ass for me. Like, people either think it falls into two camps. They don't like it because they think it's head ass, or they like it because they're like, oh my god, I like it. It made me think so much. I'm more of the former, but I enjoyed what they did with that. It wasn't so much the story of it because it was still a Black Mirror story, but it was fun, like having something kind of walk. If that was released on Switch, that would have been a game, but since it was on Netflix, it's a show. And I like, I would love to see Netflix do more of like older audience geared interactive fiction stuff, because they have a lot of that in like Netflix Kids, but not as much on like Netflix for people that aren't children. And I'd like to see them play more in that space. I think that could be really fun.
Return to Marriage Story.
I can't believe they haven't like
I would
followed
watch
up on
that
that in
so
some
fast.
way.
I would
And
also
that was
watch
a
that.
success.
So I want to just give a quick like plug, because have you guys seen any of Charlie Brooker's comedy stuff?
Yes.
Have you seen
I don't
Game
think
Swipe?
so.
No.
So he has a long-running
Well-
BBC show called Newswipe, which is kind of like Daily Show-esque, where he does basically news breakdown stuff. A lot of it is frequently very firmly rooted in UK politics, so it's a little bit over our heads. But he has a special he did called Gameswipe, which is one of my favorite pieces of like games media, anything ever, where he basically breaks down sort of the evolution and history of video games. And it's from like 10 years ago, so it's a little bit dated. But like if this dude is going to go kind of make a bunch of funny stuff for a while, it probably means he'll have a bunch of Black Mirror ideas cooking in the back of his head anyway, and then we'll get like Black Mirror came out after he'd been doing comedy for years anyway, so it was kind of nice that we're getting that. And apparently he's doing a remote special episode from quarantine that has the working title Charlie Brooker's Antiviral Wipe, which is very clever. He's got the comedy chops already.
Yeah. He used to be a editor for a tech and games magazine in the UK, PC Zone.
Yeah,
So-
he is a capital G gamer. Charlie Brooker is
He
a
should
real
definitely
actual
write and
gamer.
direct something.
Yeah.
Then I would like to see him write and direct a video game film.
Mm.
Which IP would be the best one to give him though?
Heavy Rain.
Deus Ex.
Deus Ex might not be bad actually. Trying to think of like a funny sci-fi game.
Mass Effect.
Charlie
Something
Brooker's
simple.
Mass Effect would be extremely interesting.
I would watch that.
Anyway, we are about out of time here. Coming up in just a bit. Let's see. That's tomorrow. First thing tomorrow morning, we are doing the Xbox Big Series X reveal stream live thing that's happening. That's at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time on this very channel right here. So tune in for that. And then
That's going to be
What do we
awesome,
have?
you guys. We're finally going to see some games for the Xbox Series X. We don't really know what they're going to be, but that's what they've been alluding to for the last like week or two. And this might be the first look that we get at like a serious slate of next gen video games.
This is gonna be great. It's gonna be new games. We get to actually talk about the games and not just like hypothesize about like trademarks being filed or things being delayed or canceled. It's gonna be awesome.
We've done like 16 episodes of a show about the hardware, and now we finally get to know what we can play on this thing. I'm pumped for that.
Yep. Well, that's happening first thing tomorrow, and we'll have another news, games, and more at 4 p.m. Pacific as always. Thanks guys for hanging out. Thanks for talking about the Mortal Kombat and the Cyberpunk and the Black Mirror and all the things we talked about. And thanks to everybody who is watching at home. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. See you in hell.